This time, Makoko in the lens. Well, Makoko is more than a settlement. It's a home, a livelihood, and also a history for Nigerians. Today, residents are on the streets. Better put, they're on the waters. Protesting also demolitions they say were sudden, unlawful, and cruel. The question remains, who protects the urban poor when development arrives without warning? Well, our correspondent followed the protest from Makoko to Alausa, speaking with displaced residents, civil groups, and also officials. What emerged is a picture of fear, anger, and also unresolved questions about land rights and also due process. Here's that special report by Victor Mbadike.
It began calmly in the early hours of the morning as residents, activists, and civil society groups converged at Ikeja under bridge.
Today is not just a protest to demand shelter for the living. Today is also a day to demand justice for those who were killed.
Did the Lagos State government agree with the elders to kill their babies and their children in the process of demolition? Is that what you're asking me? So what we are just asking is for the state to halt all illegal demolition.
They marched through major roads towards the State Assembly in Alausa, hoping to draw legislative attention to the plight of displaced residents across the state.
They destroy so many properties of our market because we are selling motor.
Everywhere. Oh my God, lost this school, I can't know what they need. And Tony shop, they talk pure water.
After trekking nearly 6 kilometers from Ikeja under bridge to the Lagos State House of Assembly in Alausa, the protesters say their message is clear. Development must not come at the cost of displacement, as they await a response from the Lagos State government.
But the response they got wasn't what they expected. Several tear gas canisters were fired at the crowd, scattering the protesters.
The police officer just shot this woman
and leaving some with injuries.
We're here when they are raising abuses on me as Commissioner of Police, Lagos State. That was vomiting blood. They call me all kind of name. But in my profession, I should work under pressure. No gunshot was fired. What we use is the minimum force that is allowed in protests when people become rioters. After all, we are inside with them. If it's going to cause any injury or death, it will have caused it to equally police personnel. Nobody is killed, nobody is injured, but we've been able to successfully dispatch them, because if we allow them to continue to sit on the road, upcoming vehicle can run into them, and it's not safe for even them and equally other road users.
It is absolutely ridiculous, in my view, just ridiculous. And they say Commissioner of Police is telling me I cannot afford to allow them to block a public fairway. I cannot allow you to destroy people's homes and make them homeless. I'm not mad in this country.
With the protesters gone, security personnel still maintain a strong presence at the State Assembly, as questions remain over the use of tear gas and the concerns raised by the affected protesters. In Lagos, for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
Joining us now is News Central's correspondent, Victor Mbadike and Alex Omotehinse, the President Center for Human and Socio-economic Rights. Gentlemen, you're both welcome. Victor, I'll start with you very quickly. What triggered the latest round of demolitions in Makoko?
Well, I really don't know. The Makoko incident has been happening for quite some time now. So the government clearly said that they had informed residents in that place not to build beyond a particular diameter, so as not to stretch the lock beyond the barricade that they have apportioned to Makoko residents. But what they saw was that Makoko guys have already been building beyond the prescribed 30-meter away from the transformer. And so the excuses was that initially that they were going to demolish any houses that goes beyond their job description, to which the Makoko residents, of course, agreed to. But what happened next was that the government not only demolished the agreed homes or houses or shanties beyond the They barricaded, that's 30 meters away from the transformer, but they went beyond that and went into the hinterlands and kept on demolishing, some of these places. And that's what initially caused the uprising from the Makoko guys. But again, these protests that happened a few days ago was not just about the Makoko residents. It's about every single community that has been affected by these demolitions being carried out by the Lagos State government. So you have Makoko guys, you have the people from Uwurunshoki, you have people from Ajegule, you have people from Owode-Oniri. So all of them gathered together at the same time to see if they can put a stop to these demolitions once and for all. And of course, demand for compensations and what have you, and so that they can go back to their lives just like every other person. So that was what exactly happened on that protest day. Now,
Victor, from what you observed, because Makoko is it's a community, people's livelihoods, are in that place. Based on your observation, I don't know if you could give me a bit of an estimate, but how many people roughly have been displaced from the community?
You can't have exact figures, but if not close to 1 million person, I'm not sure I'm exaggerating. It's the entire diaphragm of Makoko. So it's not a question of how many persons, basically, but of course, the numbers are actually very, very huge. If you've seen the pictures before, you know that it's a very, very huge and a very big community that has been leveled down by the state government.
All right.
Wow.
Thank you. Alex, let's come to you, and I'm going to come to you from a human rights perspective now. Victor has just noted that there was regulation in place, that there was supposed to be no building of structures past a certain point. Now, this was flouted, and that's why the authorities moved in to demolish. But he also noted that they demolished way past their jurisdiction. However, I'm asking from a human rights perspective, how lawful was the demolition by the authorities there in Makoko? Let's start with that before we move on to any other community. Alex.
The demolition, in whatever disguise, is unlawful. And number one, we have a law. We're a country that's guarded by rule of law. That before you send a tenant, before you eject a tenant, you must give the tenant a certain period of notice. And after that notice, then you approach a court of competent jurisdiction for owner intention to recover possession. So that means if the Lagos State government really means well and they want to abide by law, a prior notice, official notice of injection ought to have been served to the Makoko residents. And for your information, the Makoko residents has been in that settlement for over 5 to 7 decades. And you can agree with me that their basic needs of livelihood is fishing. And that's why they settle down there. I can see Victor is giving a rough estimation of about 1 million people. We have more than that in Makoko, because that demolition don't only affect those who live on river right, they also demolish those who are on land. And for your information, and to set the record straight, the government's excuse of clearing certain portions is not correct. The agreement they have with Makoko people was not to build beyond a certain places where the community youth agree and then erect a barricade. And when they came in to demolish, according to those people who are on ground, they said they go beyond far, more than 100 kilometers away, only for them to advertise the kind of structure they want there. It's not because they are under high tension or what have you. It shows that the Lagos State government and its agency are only out to send away the poor living in Makoko on the water. It's not just because...
Why do you think they're out to do that? Why do you think they're out to do that? Have there been any suggestions as to why, what people think the Lagos State government is up to?
What they usually do across the state, when they come to demolish, they give the demolished site to their cronies as a developer to develop. If you want to if you want to develop, nobody's against urban development. Nobody's against urban development or renewal. But a development must have a human face. That's what we are saying. You can have your mega city without building your mega city on the bones and blood of innocent citizens. So there's no justifiable reason for you to displace people without adequate replacement or relocation or compensation. And it's because of their demolition. They always come with policemen and thugs armed to the teeth. And when they were demolishing, and the irony of it in Makoko issue is that people, after demolishing their buildings, they were sleeping on their boats, living on their boats. They went back there, seized the boat, set it ablaze. It shows that it goes beyond development. It shows that the government are out just to give the poor hard way of life. Thank you.
Okay, but Alex, still on you. Now, the government has an obligation to develop, to make amenities available. Now, that is what they owe the citizens. The citizens, however, well, you say that they've been there for almost a decade and they have a right to be there. But where is the in-between here? Where's the middle ground when it comes to what the government has to do when it comes to development and the people's rights? What obligations do you think the government has for these displaced residents, especially now that they have been evacuated?
Okay, if the government wants to develop the place, and the place is already having existing residents, not 10, not to 20 years, the government has to come to a dialogue with the residents and the owners, reach a very good concrete agreement where they will agree on a certain term. Then when the development is coming, if you are relocated, yes, the government can develop. Nobody is against it. The government can take over your land for public use only. But there must be an agreement and a proper relocation and compensation for those who are affected by your so-called development. But when this is not happening, then it became otherwise. And people will begin to see it as a hard a punishment on the poor and abuse of office against the innocent citizens. The government ought to have done the right thing. If they have settled with the residents of Makoko or other affected communities, then there must be a provision somewhere in which they must have made 3 months before the execution or demolition.
All right, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis.
I have a question.
Alex, my apologies.
You'll permit me, I would dare to call it a bit of a blonde moment. But I'm just curious to know, maybe let me stick with you, Alex. In terms of course, the obligation that you mentioned and them being given a 3 months notice prior, and then, of course, having the government have to accommodate where they resettle them. Now, when it comes to the issuance of land and, of course, suburbia, if I can call it like that, when the building began in Makoko, however many years ago, was the land issued to them by the government? Because you tend to find a situation, and I ask this because you tend to find a situation where sometimes people tend to settle in land that was not necessarily given to them. And if it was not given to them, then the government has the right to come back and repossess the land, or land grabbing, however you want to define it. So was the land given to them by the government initially? And what the government is doing now, is it out of scope or out of question?
That question is very funny. If the land was given to them by government, that I cannot answer because I am not a resident of Makoko, even if my relatives were living there. But the only thing that I know that I can say here is that people that live on waterways will have to, some people will have come there first, like we have on the land, where some people will claim the Omonile title or landowner, and then they will not just come and build without meeting some chiefs or community leaders that will have apportioned them a certain area to build or erect their structure. And you can as well, like I said, this Makoko as a case study, 99% of them are into fishing. They are into fishing, so their work is on the waterway, and they also live on water. And it is easy for them to access water when they live close by than to go and be living in Ketu, while they have to, their canoe is at Makoko. You understand? So then if government even want to settle them, even if they are illegal occupants, there are processes that the government that they have laid out in their tenancy law of Lagos State. The process also must be followed. You are the people, you are the one that make this law, and you are the one that is even abusing the law. That's what we are saying, that you need to obey the law. If you give a rule for the citizen to follow, then you as a leader must lead by example. So that's what we are saying, that for whatever reason government has to demolish or take over that place, a proper arrangement and agreement must have been entered into, or go to the court of law, approach court. The court will now rule if you are to demolish the place, it will not come from the court. Not that you wake up overnight and then move thugs and policemen to a community, then overnight around 4 a.m., then demolish their structures and then set it ablaze.
So sorry, Alex. Sorry, Mr. Alex. Just to confirm, are you basically saying that no prior correspondence was given to them at all? This came to them at a point where nobody was aware that demolition was going to be taking place?
Yeah, you can hear that from Makoko people. They say it and reiterate repeatedly that there was no prior notice before they come. And for this Makoko issue, it started in 2012 when they first invaded the wire axis of the water, very close to the Senate building of the University of Lagos. Then it was an issue of moving closer to the bridge, that they are moving closer to the third mainland bridge. Then I was the vice chairman of Committee for Defense of Human Rights in Lagos. We were also drafted into the advocacy, and we went there. There was agreement that don't build beyond this place. That was at Iwaya water side, very close to Unilag. That was done without shedding blood. But this, there was no any prior notice according to the people who live. And like I said, and I repeat, I did not live in Makoko. I have family that live in Makoko. But my involvement in this coalition against forced eviction and demolition in Lagos was my organization advocacy for the traders in Owode Oniri that we have been championing since 2025.
Alex, thank you very much. It's very difficult to squeeze this in, but I was going to say this, especially that I need Mbadike to listen out here. And of course, Inam, you asked a very interesting question, whether the extended period of time, whether the land was given to them. But by the Nigerian general principle in Nigerian law is that no, you cannot claim a piece of land just because you have actually been there for a long time. Under Land Use Act 1978, all land in each state is vested in the government, who hold it in trust of the people. What individuals have is not ownership in the absolute sense, but a right of occupancy. And yes, right of occupancy could also mean that the land could become yours eventually, but only in very specific cases, especially when it comes to rural settlements. And even this is mandated on custom itself. So I think the short answer, Inam, is that, yeah, the land doesn't belong to the Makoko residents because they've been there even for extended periods of time, but they've been allowed to stay there based on rights of occupancy. And if they've been given these stipulated areas to reside, then it's the government's prerogative if they want to move them. But it's how they've been moved that's the problem now, and that's what we're seeing with the forced evacuations and demolitions. Real quick, Mbadike, what has come out of the protest? Is there any way out for the residents? We've run out of time. If you can be summary in your response.
Oh, well, of course, if you have been following, a couple of the organizers were charged to court a couple of days ago, and as we speak, they've perfected their bail conditions and should be back to the court sometime in March 11 as the trial begins. Of course, before that, I'm pretty sure Alex know that they've also been saying that they will be back in the streets to continue the protest until their demands are met. And of course, the police have also said that there's no problem as long as you want to keep coming out. To also keep coming out to provided the security that you also need. Only if you work in tandem with the regulations guiding protest. Do not forget that one of the issues they said they had with the protesters was that they filtered into the road and blocking the entire Awolowo way and not allowing vehicles to go about their business. And so on and so forth. So the protest, of course, everyone seems to be calm. Those who have to go treat themselves are currently in the hospital. Do not forget, one of the members of the protesters was hospitalized. And we hear now that she's currently in Alausa where she's recovering. So those injured are getting themselves, better, and those who were tear gassed and are still feeling the pains are probably in their houses, recuperated until when they decide to, put themselves together and go back to the streets in protest. I need to put this out again. The Commissioner of Police yesterday went to Ode, near one of the communities that also came out in protest that Wednesday. And he went to meet with them to see how he can, sort out the issues. Because one of the key things he said was that particular market, a motor spare market, was not demolished by the state government. That it was land grabbers who actually carried out that act. And of course, I did ask from the occupants of that place, and they actually said the same thing. So, but what they are not sure of is whether these land grabber or land grabbers, as the case may be, were sponsored by the state or not, which of course could be the grounds for that protest. But the Commissioner of Police clearly said that the land grabbers actually, came with police officers from Nasarawa State, to carry out that act. And the land grabber, of course, have been arrested since then and is in custody while investigation is currently on. So that's the much on that. But whether the president will continue or not, Alex, I'm sure he's listening. He will have to tell us what he himself and other comrades plan to do going forward.
I mean, just to interject, gentlemen, I think Mazino as well, I think it's quite clear that development that destroys dignity cannot be called progress. And until planning includes the people, stories like Makoko will continue to repeat themselves. And we can promise you here at Breakfast Extra and News Central that we will stay with you on this particular issue. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Mazino?
Thank you.